Hey, you. Welcome to the podcast. Today I have a great interview with Debbie Hodge, which is a person that I know a lot of years from the time from scrapbooking. She now has a new business, and I thought it was interesting. It's a business that we don't hear much a lot, but it has a huge community, and many people are so creative use embroidery. And she came to talk about that. And we talked a little bit about design and how that can help as well, no matter what you're doing and what you can accomplish with your designs. So Debbie Hodge is a founder and chief product boss at thestitchstories.com, where she designs, produces, and sells embroidery kits. Debbie is also the owner of digital product business teachwhatyoudo.com and founder of thegettyscrapped.com, where she educated scrapbookers online for over a dozen years. So it was great to talk with Debbie. As I said, I know her a long years, and she's the nicest person. And it's great to see a person so excited about the business. I also want to remind you that we have now a Patreon. So if you want to see the video of us showing her designs and talking about it, we have exclusive video of the Patreon. You can support the podcast and also have exclusive videos, painting videos with real time, and all other perks. And all can start with just the price of a coffee. So if you want to check that out, I'll put the link in the notes for the Patreon link. And I thank you. So I hope you enjoy the conversation I had with Debbie Hodge.
Welcome to the Artistically You podcast, where mixed media art is a place for all. Here, we are going to talk about art as a mindful practice, connect with our creativity, and embrace curiosity. This is your host, mixed media artist, Jana Oliveira.
Hey, Jana, how are you?
Hi, Debbie. So good to be here with you. Oh my gosh, I was waiting for this day. I gave you guys an introduction about Debbie, but I know Debbie a lot of years, and although we never met in person, which is crazy.
That's right. But I feel like we have.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's just crazy how, we are an example how the internet brings good things to your life, right? And Debbie, I know her since the time of the scrapbooking days. I was on her team for, on her website, and which I love because it was a very welcoming website, and we had digital scrapbookers and we had paper scrapbookers.
Right.
And I learned so much about design because of your website, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later. But You, like me, changed a lot. I had a business teaching Photoshop, and you had the business teaching people how to scrapbook, but about especially more, I think, about composition, right? And how to do a good page, aesthetically, pleasing, and all that.
And the storytelling.
Yes, and also storytelling. Yeah, I learned a lot about storytelling. But then we are here today because you have this website that is being a year and so now, right?
It's been
a year and a half, right?
Yeah, a year
wow,
and a
it
half.
goes so fast.
I know, doesn't it? I started it during COVID when I started embroidering and couldn't find designs that I liked and said, ooh, I'm going to make my own.
So Debbie, first of all, what I'm curious about when you decided to start this business is, did you did embroidery before?
30 years ago when I was like 19, 20 years old, I used to do counted cross stitch. But I had never done hand embroidery, but I somehow thought I had, because when I went to embroider during COVID, I didn't want to do counted cross stitch, and I wanted to do like a sampler, and I wanted to do some lazy daisies and some stem stitch and some fly stitch. I just wanted some variety. So long ago, I embroidered.
Yes. So tell us, we kind of jump it off. Tell us your business. First of all, where you speaking from?
All right. I'm in New Hampshire, where up where the leaves have just fallen, so it's getting chilly. I live in a college town. My husband's a professor. I have sons who are in their early 20s, And yeah, we were all supposed to go on a cruise during COVID, and it didn't happen. And so that weekend that we were supposed to cruise, March 14th, 2020, I was like, oh, let's try crafts and let's fly some kites and let's play some board games. And so I bought a bunch of embroidery kits, and that's where my passion for embroidery started. And it connects really well to, I couldn't find the designs I wanted, and I had spent so much time doing scrapbooking pages. To me, even though it's round instead of square, it still feels like a similar format. You're still working with motif and color and flow.
But what did it spark you to say, okay, let's do this?
Well, I had this other business, Teach What You Do, where I teach people how to teach online. And that was just, a big part of having a business is you got to create, and you also have to market. And the marketing for that and the creating there wasn't a lot of work to do at that moment. I was just teaching people, just showing up twice a month, teaching live, answering in the group. So I had time, and I was also selling courses like hand over fist because it was COVID and everybody wanted to learn how to teach online. So I actually had some extra capital and I had some extra time. And my son didn't have an internship for the summer. My husband had some students who didn't have internships for the summer. And my whole family and I was like, well, maybe I should try and sell these. And they were like, yeah, let's just
But
just
it's
try.
a whole different ball game when you go to product selling than just online courses and content, digital content.
Right. I had always sold digital product.
Yes.
And now I was selling a hard product. And the other thing
was that a lot of learning curve for you?
It was somewhat. Amy Kingsford is on my team. She's worked with me at Get a Scrap.
Great.
She's worked with me at Teach What You Do. And she's worked with some product people. So she knew some about Shopify. I had these.
Oh my gosh.
She's
amazing.
Yeah, and Amy's amazing. So she was like, it'll be fine. And I think she had set her template up with Shopify. I was really worried about actually physically mailing things. And that's what my son worked on in the summer, is just, which was simple, right? Get a printer for the labels, get a scale, weigh the packages. It wasn't as complicated as I thought.
Wow, but you create the designs, right? When you first launched, what surprised me about you, I said, I didn't know Debbie could draw this and had all this designs in her mind. That was new to me.
Well, I thought a lot about motifs I liked, and a lot of my early designs, and sometimes still I'll use licensed art. I'll license it for reproduction. So like like this one on the canal. I think I actually purchased the boat is a piece that I purchased. I think I might have drawn the canal. The houses I purchased, but then I would always edit, right? So I would buy like an Adobe Illustrator file, and then I would edit it up. So a lot of the work for me is...
Do you have that program that transforms your designs in Stitch?
No.
Because that program is so expensive.
No, I don't do that, because for me, it's sitting down and thinking, so like these buildings were just drawn out, right, with squares. But then I was like, all right, how can we make it fun? So, I added the circle pane, the little lazy daisy panes, the fan lights, all the details. So for me, it's taking a basic empty shape and then thinking about how can I incorporate 9 to 12 classic stitches? Because that's what was fun for me. I didn't want to do, so there's embroidery designs that are gorgeous, and they're often outlines.
Yeah.
With a lot of white space, or they're often this thing called thread painting, where you're filling in, totally filling in with different shades, like you have 4 shades of red.
And there is also this very, I don't know, I'm sorry if you're listening to this and you have very stitched knowledge. I'm sorry, I don't have knowledge, but I've seen on Etsy some that are almost covering everything with the thread.
Right.
Almost like it's just a straight line covering everything.
Right. So that's why I was like, I want to do this thing I know I did as a child, and I want it to be relaxing, and I want to be able to I want it to be also like a collage, like a lot of the designs. There's little pieces like this, No Place, like No Place Like Home. You could you could do the house one day.
Yeah,
and then you could work on the clouds.
Yeah, for the ones listening, you can take a look later, but she's showing a design that No Place Like Home. So it has the house, and it has the mountains, and it has the city at the at the end, and it has the clouds. Very cute.
So each of those pieces you could just dip into. And for me, it was less about having this piece to display or gift than it was just having a really fun project.
Yes.
So,
But then, so you mean that, for example, these flowers that they are like three. So you design, you know,
right,
the
I
ones that
think
you
about
don't buy, you just one by hand
all
you
I
transform.
buy. The only thing, let's see, the only like here I bought the mountains and the cityscape, but the
Yeah, but
rest
they
I
look like
created.
stitched, right? So you do
They
that.
do, but most things that I get are just shapes. And like here's a new one I'm working on, and I did this all myself. I didn't buy anything.
Oh, I love this because I love coffee.
You love coffee. This one, it says
Yeah,
starting today
I
with a
can't
grateful
drink
heart
anymore,
and
but
coffee.
I can't drink anymore. I got the
Oh, so
doctor said
sorry.
no more. Yeah, he said, but I love everything that has to do with coffee.
So for me, it's just always thinking about how can I have lots
Love
of
this.
stitches. So I thought, ooh, I can do some of the letters to use a chain stitch, and then I can use some of the
And
letters. I can use
and these
satin
patterns
stitch.
that you have, and what is she showing? She's showing like a coffee kettle, right? Coffee kettle, and it says each day it
Start
starts
each day
with a
with a
grateful
grateful
heart
heart and
and
coffee.
coffee. Oh, this is great to put in the kitchen.
Yeah.
But what I'm gonna say is that around all this is almost reminds me doodles.
Right. So it's supposed to be sort of like a doily or sort of like a
Right, that's
coffee or sort of
true.
like a coffee filter. I've also got sort of a sunburst coming up from the bottom, and
Yes.
there's a to-go cup in it. So I spend a lot of time sketching it out. If I buy some of the art, it's only to buy a shape, like a basic shape, and I don't do it as much anymore. But like with the buildings and on the canal, it was the outer shapes of the
Yeah.
buildings. And then I create all the things that go inside of it, like butterfly collage, which you love. I created all of that. I
Love
mean,
this
I
one.
think I used a Photoshop butterfly shape, but otherwise, it's just using shapes, and I'm thinking about the stitches that I can work with and how I can repeat them. Like star shapes or lazy daisies. So to me, it's always thinking about how can I render a scene with these 12 classic stitches.
So, here in the podcast, I like to bring all kinds of art, all kinds of creators, and emphasize a lot whatever you do brings to you in terms of peace, relaxation, mindfulness. And the reason I wanted to invite you is because I bought one of your kits and it had a special story. You had a kit that has a wagon, it had a little dog, and that little dog, I don't know if it's because the moment that I was going through, but that little dog reminded me of a beagle. It looked like a beagle was in that wagon.
Yeah, and you had
And
lost your dog.
I lost my beagle. And to this day, I still get emotional because I miss him a lot, a lot. He was part of my life for 13 years, all the time here when I'm penny on my food. Even when I go to the bathroom, he would go. He was very dear to my heart. So I thought, oh, isn't that be nice to have that to remind me? But when I was doing it, it felt kind of, I would remind him and I would stitch and it would relax me. I thought that was a good distressor out of, no, you are painting or think about business, as an artist, you always think about all those things. But then I thought stitching, I could sit on the sofa with my husband and like stitch and, So this is my story about how it relaxed me. But tell
Yeah.
people about, do you think the benefits that stitching does?
Well, let me talk first about stories, because you said that this connected you to your puppy that you had lost.
Yeah.
And so the company is called Stitched Stories.
Yes.
And every kit comes with a really comprehensive stitching guide. It's 4 pages. There's
That's
a lot
true.
of text in there.
A lot
And
of
I talk in
information.
there. So each design has a story. And I invite people to think about it. Has the potential for you to connect to your own stories. And those could be stories of your past, right? Things that you remember, things that you think on.
Yeah.
It could be the stories that are going on right now in your life. And it could just be that this gives you the opportunity to think through whatever's going on now and just calm yourself. And it could also be a little bit aspirational. It could have you thinking about where you want to be. And so every design, I feel in the stitching guide, I connect it to potential stories. And then as far as relaxing, it just is relaxing.
It is.
Because it's the repetitions in and out. And that's why these are also designed with the pattern is printed in color right to the fabric.
Yes,
There's no
very
looking
easy.
at a diagram. There's no, I mean, there is a diagram where I tell you which stitch I use and which color I use. But once you look at it and you're like, okay, I'm going to be stitching, the background of this, and I'm going to be using the
You
light
can also
pink
like
and the back
use other
stitch.
colors if you want.
Absolutely.
I diverged a little bit from the colors for sure.
Most people do with that dog one. they render it to look
to
like
whatever dog they want, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
But if people are thinking, oh, I never embroidered in my life, is that hard? What do you think?
I don't think it's hard. I think some people are willing to put in the half hour, the hour to master the feeling of putting a needle in and pulling it all the way through and making sure that you pulled it all the way through and learning how to get the patience not to tangle it. Because the people I find who try this and don't like it, the UNH student who worked with us initially, who I adore her, she did incredible work for us writing articles. So when the kits, we were just getting the kits out and I sent her some and she was just like, this is terrible. I hate it. And she was having a lot of problems with, she just wasn't pulling, I'm looking for one that I'm stitching on. She wasn't pulling the thread all the way through. So, you're going to go down through and every time you go through, you need to pull the thread all the way through so that it's flat on the back. You can't have a big wad of so to me, if you can take the patience, if you can spend 15, 20 minutes and just get the rhythm of going in and out. And that's why with each kit, the very first thing, there's a new stitcher guide and I show people where to do straight stitches to start. And it's just the idea of in and
also,
out.
like, I'm a visual person, so when I got the kit, there were some things I was not familiar. And although you described really well, I needed to kind of see, especially that one that you do a loop and go through it the inside.
The French knot.
Yeah. So there are videos on YouTube of just that, very close up. It's like a 10-second video just doing that. And I was like, oh, this is great that, you don't need to like watch a whole person. No, it's just basically a person doing the stitch and that's it. It's like 10-second video. So
yeah, because
that
we have these stitches, but you can always go look at a YouTube video. And a lot of people say to me, oh, well, now that you've got this business, you should go make a bunch of YouTube videos. And
can you show that again now that you are in full screen so people can see better? So she's showing the booklet.
So here's the stitching guide. Yeah, so you've got the cover that you can look at as you're stitching, and then there's a diagram that shows you which stitches and which colors to use. Up here we tell you exactly how to get started, how to split your thread and everything. And then I talk about the story, and I give the new stitcher guide where I tell you step by step, here's the stitches to do if you're brand new, and then on the back we've got all the diagrams.
And it's great because you have this background of Photoshop, so, and in design, so this for you is easy to create these booklets, right?
I hired somebody to illustrate the stitches for me because I just couldn't do it. But yes, now Amy and I, we lay this out in InDesign.
So all your kits, are they made of 9 stitches? Is that what you...
So there's these 12 stitches, and all of the kits, I try to get as many stitches in as possible. Some of them, like Lighthouse, do I have that back there? No, I don't. Lighthouse only uses maybe 6 or 7, but usually there's at least 9 stitches because I think that's a lot of fun. So we try to get those many stitches, but part of the fun becomes in the combinations of stitches, right? So, like here's a new one that I'm working on, and the carpet uses basic stitches, but you've got satin stitches, you've got fly stitches, back stitches, right? So it's combinations. Like the plant is outline, lazy daisy, straight. So the fun comes in when you figure out, well, I try to find interesting combinations so that while you're using these same 12 stitches, you're using them in new ways, and it's fun.
And what are people been sharing with you about using the kids, or, are they saying I get so relaxed and that relaxes me?
I have some tremendous stories. I don't think I can share actual details, but a lot of people, there have been a few people who've shared with me incredibly difficult lives that they have and how important stitching is. And many of them have stitched in the past. A lot of them have done counted cross stitch. And they really love how the design is printed right to the fabric and how much fun it is to stitch. It's very just satisfying. Because the other thing is that I found, and not just throw shade on any other kits. I think I'm so admiring of all people making embroidery kits. Many kits are just in a smaller hoop, and you get it, and you're done in an hour or two. So my goal with these would be that it would take you.
It takes more days.
Yes, because I wanted this to be a project that you're going to invest the money in it, and I want you to have the time to spend with this story and stitch it. This is not going to take months, but it's going to take, I don't know, probably 40 hours. Well, they range anywhere from probably 12 hours to 40 hours in total, which depends on how you live your life and how you spread that out. Like this new coffee one.
And for me, like a week.
Yeah, the coffee one goes together really quickly because I'm stitching them right now in order to photograph for the guides, and I got to get this one stitched by tonight so I can order the guide, and this one's a lot of work. This is probably a 12-hour job. This is probably a 40-hour job.
But I guess when you start learning more, then you want to do more complicated things, right?
Yes, and you know what? And at that point, people may well move on. A lot of people tell me that they so a lot of people who buy my kits also are quilters. They do slow stitching, freestyle slow stitching, and make their own designs. They may paint, they may do a lot of other crafts, and they may do some really complicated stuff too. When I talked about thread painting or just more complicated stitches. And just like, if I buy sunglasses, I don't buy them from only one person, right? If you buy embroidery kits, you're probably going to get some from several designers.
It's like buying paints just from Golden. You don't do that.
Right. Right. So my kits are never going to be really advanced. They're never going to have really advanced stitches. I try to make fun combinations, but this is what they are.
But
they're 8 inches, they're 12 stitches, they're basics.
I like how the richness and details that they have, though. I've never seen other kits out there with the richness of details.
Thanks. There are some. There definitely are some just beautiful ones. Often, though, when you get into that richness of detail, you're using more advanced stitches, or you're doing a lot of the satin stitch and the thread painting, which I don't have the patience for.
I am a totally beginner. I do this just for relaxation. So for me, even this is a little like too much.
Yeah.
So for me, it's okay.
Yeah, and we do have people with children who are using them. I'm not going to say every child's going to happily stitch, but there are many happily stitching kids, right? It just depends on, do you have the nature and the, the desire to sit down and do this?
And I'm showing here on the screen one that is a camper. So if you are a camper, it's fantastic, like you are in the woods and there's fire and the bear.
Yep.
And it's a little camper. I think this is one of most sold, right? That you have.
Yes. Yes. So over the year and a half, that's our absolute top seller since we opened our doors.
Wow, it's amazing.
Yeah, people just really love their camping, right? And a lot of people. And then Tea Party is the best seller this year, and it's the second best seller
overall. It has to be. It's who can resist teapots? So before we just talk a little bit about design, because it's important for all kinds of art, right? I just would like to show or talk about how easy you make, because you sell the kit completely, everything ready for you to just go and create. So could you talk a little bit about that? And if you have clothes that you can show, I'll put you.
Yeah. So the kit comes packaged like this. So here's kit. And it's in this sealed bag. This one's unsealed. And then so you've got the stitching guide, which I had just showed you an example of one before. And then
this is what I love.
You get a hoop and you get a tin.
I love this tin.
These makes these great for gifting. It also is just really great for storing. So then in the tin is the fabric.
Everything organized.
10.5-inch square with the pattern printed in color. This pattern is not going to wash out. And then there's the floss. This one has, I think, 7 or 8 skeins. And then your needles are on this card. And there's a little magnetic needle minder.
Did you have this idea, okay, if I'm going to sell this, I want everything to be packed and ready to go for people?
I don't know. So Jana, remember Maya Road from scrapbooking? So when I was first doing this and I was using other people's kits and I was just doing it and I was trying to organize things, I guess I don't have them nearby. I had some old Maya Road tins, which are just a little bit bigger than this.
Maya Road did a lot of tins, all kind of sizes.
Hinged. Yeah. So I was storing my stuff in old Maya Road tins. So then, so that's how it happened. I just was like, ooh, wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't that be really nice?
And for people that don't know, Maya Road was a scrapbooker craft kind of company that unfortunately.
Yeah, so it came out of that. And I also, originally there was a store in my, so I have sold to some people. I do sell wholesale if people contact me individually. And really? When I first started, I have friends who have a store who immediately wanted it in the store. So I started thinking, well, how am I going to package it with not too much packaging, but it can be in a store. And that's when I was like, well,
it's like some little boutiques,
yeah, if I can put them in this bag, I mean, yes. So then, so that drove the design of the brochure because I wanted that to become part of the packaging. I wanted the cover of it to serve as your stitching guide, but also the cover for a product. And so it just, you know what, with anything you do step by step, right? Oh, there's a Maya Road tin. Oh, my friend wants it in her store. Oh, so you just...
Another thing that came up to me, I think is a question that many people may have that, okay, you convinced me, let me try this to see if I can relax with this. What they would do with once they stitched is just like stays, give. Yeah, well, they can hang.
So what I really like to do, they just don't fit on the walls in my house. It's not my husband's kind of style of decor, but what I can do with it is I buy these little easels or plate stands.
Yeah.
And then I can incorporate it into a styled vignette. And if people go to my Instagram feed, you'll see a lot of pictures of them styled in vignettes. So like this one I might hang on a wall in my office, right? Because this one's crafty.
Yeah. But
and
I like have to say to you, one idea that I had was to stitch them and make them as a cover for our journal.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I do get people who incorporate them into a quilt. And that feels similar. Yeah.
I thought about that. So, I'm thinking to do our journal for some memories of my dog. So that's why I bought it. I thought of doing like art journal for him.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I know many people who buy them. They buy the same one over and over again because their family loves them and they gift them. And a lot of people do like displaying it. My mom displays embroidery beautifully in her home. For me, I just love having them, and I just keep them down in my dining room area. And I've always got my buffet where I do little styled, whatever the holidays are. Or,
do you
think
about doing, I don't know how it's in your area, but do you think about doing vendor market shows when the summer comes?
I'm a hermit. In fact, a big change in this business is having to go to the post office almost every day. I started this during COVID, and of course, there can be delays.
But the good thing is that you label everything, so it's just drop over there. Yeah, it's what I do with my pieces.
Right.
Yeah,
I just prefer there. I prefer to take it to the post office and get it on the counter myself.
Yeah, and also we make sure, right, that it's there, right?
Right. And if it snows or rains here.
And by the way, I would follow. Let me put here again. Debbie's IG is stitchedstories.embroidery. Sometimes she put on her stories her beautiful backyard. You are one of these people that we envy that live just by the river. When we go to the rivers and we see the houses, and I always envy how these people got these houses. So you are one of them.
House? It was bank owned. It was a mess. It's not very big, and my husband said I have to live here.
The backyard did it. Yeah, it's a beautiful backyard.
It's not, it's not groomed or anything. It's just.
But the trees are amazing. Sometimes you put these videos of, the movement of the trees. It's
what? Marvelous. I love to work. My bedroom's right over here, and it looks right out on these doors, and I'm in the treetops. So, yeah, I mean. no grass here, just pine needles and moss, but it's pretty.
So Debbie, before we finish, because Debbie has other appointments to go, I would like to talk a little bit about design, because design is so important for us artists, for all people that create anything. And you are a master of this. I learned so much from you. You have such a good knowledge of it. And tell us why this is important. Even when you create embroidery, a little bit in, I know it's a huge topic, but just so people can have an idea why this is important to have design.
Yeah. Well, because you want people to, when somebody has a finished design, we're going to make this design, we want it to be appealing, right? We want it to look good in our home. We want there to be unity, but also in order for there to be unity, people need to know where to look in a design and where to look next, right? There needs to be a visual hierarchy. And it needs to feel together. I wish I had brought that coffee one over here. I didn't, but let me show you just a couple of old designs and how they progressed. Let me show you the Thanksgiving one. So here's the Thanksgiving one, my first version. I wanted to do something fun.
Yes.
And I tried teal, but that really isn't in keeping. So design also has to help with your story. That teal makes it look like a peacock.
Yeah.
It just wasn't in keeping. So then I finally reached, and so here's another version. Whoops.
So she's showing a turkey, but
yes.
The first one, she had some kind of teal color and was looking like a peacock.
Right. So now this one I went down to just, I got rid of so much. I just kept the dark teal in little eyes on the feathers, but I still felt like, see that doily in the background? And you can see right there, I was playing with two different colors. Should I go light? Should I go dark? So I play a lot with it. And it felt really bohemian and almost Middle Eastern to me. So, which doesn't fit with the story of Thanksgiving. So now I've got a more simple doily edge. So you're working to tell the story, you're working to move the eye, you're working to have unity in the piece, right? All these.
But also you have to, know about color and balance of the piece, know your focal point there.
Right.
To call the attention for the piece.
Right. My Christmas one that I just did started with, started like this. Very busy. I've got that reindeer up in the corner in a framed picture. Things are very gold. They just felt way too gold to me. In another version, I was like, okay, let's move to blue for the stockings. Let's make it feel a little bit better. And then in the final version, which do I have it here? I should have it. Oh, sorry, I don't. In the final version, I got rid of the reindeer because it was just too busy, and I just got more unity with the color. So I think often we're working with, here's the final version. So in the final version, I took out the reindeer,
yes.
right? Yes. You can just see, right? It just feels
absolutely better. Yeah.
So we need to have, the eye to feel like it can move around. We need colors that tell our story. We need motifs that tell our story. We need people to feel comfortable in it. I don't know. Am I rambling here?
No, what do you think is important if people are starting their path in art or whatever, because embroidery is art. What do you think is important for them to start studying about design?
I would start with those basic design principles about understanding one focal point and emphasis, right? And that idea of a visual hierarchy. Where's the eye going to go first? Where's it going to go next? Is it going to be able to move around the design, or is it going to leave it? Although you can absolutely break the rules once you know the rules.
Yeah.
So you could have a line, send the eye off the canvas if you know what you're doing, and you could work with that. So I would definitely work with.
Something that what I've been studying a lot also is color, especially the color wheel and, complementary colors and tertiary colors and, to work also with contrast, when you want the piece to have contrast, when you don't want the piece to have contrast. I think you showed there, especially on the turkey piece, that you see how difference a color makes in emphasizing the turkey or not, right? And also the colors have to go together, in order to work for the eye.
Right. So on the top here, you're seeing an old version of Butterfly Collage, and you can see the background's really bold pink, the butterfly's bold, whereas the final one, I went with a much more subdued background so that the foreground could pop.
Yeah, so you see that on the second one there, and she's showing the butterfly is that, the background, she did kind of a very subtle creamy color there, pink, but very low pink. And we can see how the focal point there works better now. My eye goes straight to that butterfly, then it goes to the circles, which is what I want us to look at it. And then you look at the background.
Right. So when Jana's talking about color, value is really important too, right?
Yes.
So in the finished one, the only dark values are really the blues and there's some purple. But in that top one, I've got dark values in the background with some dark pink. I've got that bold yellow. The green is limier. I've just got too many loud, bold values in that top one, and they're all just yelling at each other, and it's a mess.
Mm-hmm. So I think for you, it helped a lot, right, to have that base of composition that you had, because, I mean, oh my gosh, we had so many lessons in Gary Scrapton. You did all these amazing booklets about, and, color,
flow,
the
balance.
Triangle, and all the kinds of stuff.
Yeah, like right here's look at my visual triangle on the border of this. You see the 3 blue spots around the very outside of the design.
It's little details that seem random, but they are really not. They are framing your eye to go where the artist want you to look. And I think for you, that was a big help, right? Because
absolutely. I couldn't do this without having done all that learning about design principles and working with scrapbook pages so long. Because now when I work with these, I spend a lot of time after I sketch out in, what's that software called that's on the iPad? It begins with a P?
Procreate?
Yes. So I sketch out in Procreate. And then I move to Photoshop on my computer because I want to start turning, I want to, where can I put stitches in? Yeah. And so then I spend a long time. This one came out pretty well. Like this was my first stitch through and I only had one revision of it. And I think because I spent so many hours in Photoshop working with color, working with flow, working with balance, I just made a few tweaks in it in the end. So
and the thing is, when you know about design and color theory, it helps you in all kinds of things. I mean, we were doing scrapbooking, and that can be valued in painting, that can be valued in embroidery, that can be valued in anything. So it's something that if you are listening to this, or you are an artist, or you want to be an artist, or if you whatever kind of hobby you have, it's important to have that base. I know it's something that it seems boring. It seems like, I just want to paint. I just want to import. Why do I have? But it's important because I believe what I've learned now all these years is that will make a difference instead of you just doing classes and copying people instead. Because this is what you hear more. I want to do my thing. I don't want to copy. But that's how you get out of that route, right?
Right. So start with the rules. I'm looking around. I have a lot of books on graphic design here. I have like the elements of graphic design there. I have graphic design school over here. And I think reading a design and just understand, because they'll immediately teach you that your design needs to communicate, that you need to convey something with your art.
Yeah.
Or your
and
design,
I think you did a Facebook Live and you talked about a book that you use, a huge book of patterns that you use for inspiration. I got that book and I was like, oh,
you did?
God, I did. And it's like, not just you can do bicep curls with that book because it's so heavy, but it really gives you so many, like my mind exploded with the colors, combination. You can, I don't do patterns, but as an artist, I do flowers and I can get the colors, the combination. It makes your head think about all kinds of things. So we can get inspiration for all that. But I think knowing this base, it's really important. So I'm going to say again the website and stitchstories.com. I don't know when I'm going to release this, but I just want to say that you run some promotions, right? So the best way is for people to sign up to your newsletter.
Yeah. So go to stitchstories.com. Click on, and if you just scroll all the way down, there's a place to get on the mailing list. And there's also a choice on the menus that says free. And we've got some free patterns there. You can print out a stitching guide. So either one of those ways, that'll get you on my mailing list.
And also, go to her Facebook page, which is Stitch Stories, or
yes, stitchstories.embroidery.
Yeah, because Debbie does some live there sometimes about the kids, your inspiration, your, what you're creating, some sneak peeks and things like that, and also on her Instagram. So you guys can take a look at everything that she's doing. But I think it's a great side hobby for you to have. It's really relaxing. And
really relaxing.
Some people do amazing things with it. I mean, you can learn through this, easy kits and, do amazing things. So
right. The great thing about this as a hobby is it's so easy to just pick up. There's you can just, it's a small little thing. You can take it with you in the car and work on it while you're waiting for an appointment. You can travel with it. There's no mess. So, and I'm not saying it has to be your only craft, but I think it's a really nice craft to mix in with your other work. And then you think about things like Jana thinking about stitching a cover for a journal about her dog.
Yeah. So Debbie, I just want to say this to people. Debbie is the nicest people you can know. I mean, I sometimes wonder if you ever get angry.
Oh, now that my kids are grown up, no. My life is pretty stress-free. Not that my kids were a cause of anger, but, being a young mom, I might have had a shorter temper.
I wanted to bring you also because I think it's important to highlight women that are, you had this thing, you decided to start a whole new thing and a whole new business, and it's hard, especially for women, and to be, independent of, because sometimes they say, well, I have help from my previous business. But I believe, I was thinking about that before we started. Yeah, okay, you had some help, but the reason why you're still here is because of you. Because even if you had
at the end of
capital to do ads or whatever, if the kids were not good, they would not be here, right? So you have to give that, kudos for you for, giving a nice project, good presentation, and something that is helping people out there to relax, to have a good time, to talk about stories, to remember things like I did. It was really touching, especially in a moment that my dog just died. So, and again, you're going to be buying from the most amazing person there is.
Oh, thank you.
She's always willing to help, which I
have loved working with Jana. Loved working with her when she was on our creative team. She made such great work for the Get It Scrap blog. The Get It Scrap blog is still there. It's pretty old.
And also,
but
what I remember so much that I learned from that time is the critique times that we have, so many good conversations, and that taught me a lot to put myself to critique work.
And here's the great thing about Jana that she did. So in a membership, we had these critiques where I would bring in a guest designer, and then people could bring in their pages and get them kindly but critically critiqued. And Jana showed up so often. Yeah. She put herself up there. And that's how she kept mastering things and getting better and better and better. And
yeah, I think that is critical. And even today, I work with a coach to kind of, correct. You have to do this. You don't have to be afraid. But it makes a difference. It makes a difference. So Debbie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Jana. It was fun to chat with you.
I know you have a lot of things going on, but I encourage people to follow Debbie on her IG. Again, I'm going to put all the information on the notes for the podcast and also on the blog post. The blog post takes a little longer for me to edit everything, but you can have right away all her links on the podcast. Debbie, again, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jana. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I appreciate you listening to the podcast all the way here to the end. And I would like to thank you so much. And to help us spread the word about the podcast, you can share on Instagram and tag me. I would love to share as well. And take a screenshot and tell me what you're doing while you're listening to the podcast. Or leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We really appreciate if you could do that. It really helps spread the word about the podcast. I will talk to you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening. Check episode notes at 2worldart.com/blog. Connect with Jana on Instagram at Jana_2worlds. And make sure to receive our artful insights by signing up at bit.ly/join2worldsart.